All right, everybody, with that being done now, I want to move on to my favorite part of the show, which everyone knows is gun talk. And I want to continue the custom 1911 theme here by answering a question I got in my live chat last night. I was asked, who do I think is the best custom 1911 maker out of the four big ones? The main guys. And three of these main guys were on my list of top 1911s, but one wasn't. The four that we were talking about being the main builders were Ed Brown, Les Bear, Nighthawk, and the only one I didn't choose a gun from, that is Wilson Combat. Now, does that mean I think Wilson Combat is not as good as the other makers? No, they're every bit as good. I just think they take their guns in a different direction. And when I'm deciding which one I like best, it's pretty clear to most people who paid attention to my list where 3 out of 5 were Nighthawk, and there was no Wilson Combat. Nighthawk's my favorite. But it's not enough to just say why Nighthawk is my favorite. I need to say, why is Nighthawk my favorite? Well, when you look at custom 1911s, I think there's 3 categories these guns usually fall into. There is the guns that are more tactical. There are the guns that are more classic. And there are the guns that are more refined. Now, when you look at these 4 big makers, one of the reasons Wilson Combat wasn't on my list is because I think Wilson Combat leans far more towards the tactical guns. The response guns, the rapid response guns, the duty guns, etc., all the bells and whistles. They clearly fall into the tactical category. I'm not much of a tactical guy, so even though I think they're great 1911s, they're usually not the 1911 for me. But I know they're awesome, and for people who like the more tactical kind of look and gearing, that would probably be their favorite ones. But for me, that makes them kind of my least favorite one. Next, we have Ed Brown. Ed Brown's guns tend to lean towards that, like I said, refined. They're more elegant guns. Like I say, they look good with a 3-piece suit. So when you look at an Ed Brown gun, it falls into that refined category. He's kind of like a guy who builds a good 1911 and then he says, let's make it as pretty as possible too, and as elegant as possible, with his finishes and his scalings and his little touches. So that gun falls clearly into the refined category. And I like occasionally a refined gun, so he's probably number 3 on my list of the top 4. Wilson Combat's at 4. At number 3, Ed Brown. Not saying that his aren't as good as all the other ones, but just because of the way he thinks, his mindset when he makes a gun puts him at number 3 on my list. Now, number 2 of my list of favorite custom makers would be Les Bear. And when you look at Les Bear guns, they're classic, they're pure, they're clean. They don't put a lot of fancy stuff on them. They don't do a lot of extra. It's just going to be made perfect, hand fit perfect. And then beyond that, he doesn't do much. Stamps the name on the side of it, sends it out the door once it's functionally perfect. And visually clean too, but just not really fancied up. So he falls clearly in the classic category. And I love a good classic 1911. That's why I like Les Bear so much. And that's why he's probably my second favorite of the custom gun makers. Now, we get to Nighthawk, my number 1 favorite of the 4 big custom 1911 makers. Why do I like Nighthawk so much? Is Nighthawk more tactical? Is it more classic? Is it more refined? What is it? Well, the thing about Nighthawk that I like the most is it kind of rests in the middle. It does a little bit of the tactical stuff, but it doesn't do it like Wilson Combat does. It's clean and refined. Most of their guns are very nicely done and very clean, but they're not as clean as and pure as a Les Bear gun. But they kind of lean in that category. And they're not as refined as an Ed Brown. Like I say, they're not quite as classy looking as an Ed Brown. They step a little more outside that into the more rugged categories, the more tactical and the more classic. But they're still pretty damn refined. More so than Wilson Combat or Les Bear. So like I said, they kind of straddle that. They're kind of the middle ground. If you think of Les Bear, Wilson Combat, and Ed Brown as kind of a triangle, Nighthawk's kind of right in the middle. So that's why I like Nighthawk. It kind of has a foot in all three realms there. So I guess it's got 3 feet. I don't know how that happened. Tripod, I guess. But there you have it. There's who I think are the best of the 4 big custom gun makers. Depends on what kind of gun you like, which one you would probably like, because they're all awesome. But in my case, I kind of like the jack of all trades, which in this case, I think is the Nighthawk Custom 1911.